Hello and welcome to English in Advance. I'm your host, Jessica, and I'm so glad you're here with me today. You know, my students, the people I work with every day, are often quite surprised when I tell them a little secret about myself. They see me now as a teacher and a communication coach with years of experience. And they assume that speaking with clarity, with fluency, and with confidence has always been easy for me. And yes, it's true that I'm a native English speaker, but that doesn't mean that confidence came naturally. In fact, it was a long, winding, and often difficult journey for me, not just in the second language I learned, but even in my own native English. I remember one specific moment from my university days so clearly. I was in a public speaking class, which is ironic, I know. I had to give a 5-minute presentation on a topic I loved. I had practiced for days. I knew my material inside and out. But the moment I stood up in front of those 30 other students, something inside me just froze. My heart started pounding like a drum against my ribs. My palms were sweaty, and I could feel a nervous heat rising in my face. I opened my mouth to speak, and my voice came out as a shaky, quiet whisper. The words I had rehearsed so many times suddenly vanished from my mind. I stood there in complete silence for what felt like an eternity, just staring at the confused faces in front of me. It was a deeply humbling and frankly terrifying experience. That day, I walked out of that classroom believing something very strongly. Some people are born to be great speakers, and I was just not one of them. This feeling wasn't just limited to public speaking. It crept into all areas of my life. I remember trying to write an important email to a professor I admired. I must have spent 3 hours on 3 simple paragraphs. I would write a sentence and then immediately delete it. I would read it out loud and it would sound foolish to my own ears. I was paralyzed by the fear of using the wrong word, of sounding unprofessional, of not being smart enough. This struggle wasn't about my knowledge of English. It was about my confidence in using it. It was about a little voice inside my head that was constantly judging every word I chose. Have you ever had that little voice in your head whispering things to you when you try to speak English? I call mine the perfectionist gremlin. It sits on your shoulder and waits for the perfect moment to tell you that you're not good enough. It feeds on 2 things, comparison and self-criticism. The moment you compare yourself to someone else, the gremlin gets stronger. The moment you criticize yourself for a small mistake, you've just given it a feast. That voice that says, "I am just too shy to speak with confidence." Or maybe it tells you, "Look at everyone else. They're so much better than you. You can never be as confident as that person over there." Perhaps you've listened to a coworker in a meeting or a character in a movie and thought, "Oh, they speak so fast. Their words flow like a river. They sound so fluent. Why can't I do that?" And then the perfectionist gremlin chimes in again. If you slow down, you'll sound like you don't know what you're talking about. My colleagues will get bored listening to me. They'll start checking their phones. I have to speak faster. I have to keep up. Or maybe you've been in the middle of a sentence, feeling good, feeling confident, and the perfect word is right on the tip of your tongue. You can almost taste it. But it just disappears into a fog, and you get stuck. In that moment of silence, your mind starts racing, and the gremlin gets louder. "They must think I'm foolish," it shouts. "They probably think my English is terrible. They're judging me for forgetting such a simple word. It was so easy. Why couldn't I remember it? This is proof that I'm not ready for this. If any of those thoughts sound familiar, if you have your own version of that perfectionist gremlin, I want you to know that you are not alone. I have had every single one of those thoughts, those exact same fears and worries, both in my second language and in English. For a long time, I believed those voices. I let them build a little cage around me. I thought they were telling me the truth about myself and my abilities. But then, through a long process of learning, observing, and trying, I discovered something that changed everything. I discovered that all of those beliefs, all of those negative things my gremlin was telling me, were just myths. A myth, as you might know, is a false belief. It's a story that we tell ourselves, or that society tells us, that feels incredibly true, but it isn't. My discovery wasn't a single aha moment. It was a gradual awakening. It started by watching other speakers who I admired and realizing they sometimes made mistakes too. They would pause, they would correct themselves, and nobody seemed to mind. Then I started reading about psychology and the nature of confidence, and I learned that it wasn't a personality trait but a skill. And when I finally learned to separate the myths from the truth in language learning, it completely transformed my mindset. It changed my whole approach to learning. It reignited my motivation to practice, and it unlocked my ability to make real, tangible progress in my speaking. But most importantly, it gave me the one thing I was searching for, and a confidence. It was a deep, lasting confidence that allowed me to keep going, even when it was hard. This was true for me in my second language, and it was just as true in my native language, English. In our time together today, I want to help you do the same. I want to help you become a confident English speaker. We're going to do that by looking at what is myth versus what is reality. And I will give you practical, actionable steps you can take right now to start making progress in your own English confidence and fluency. Believing in these myths, these false stories, is like trying to drive a car with the parking brake on. You can press the gas pedal as hard as you want, but you will only create smoke and noise without actually moving forward. It stops us from reaching our destination, but it doesn't have to be that way. By understanding what is truly possible, and by having a roadmap with practical steps, you can release that brake and start moving forward. So, let's get started. We are going to explore 5 of the most common myths that I hear from English learners all the time. Myths that I once believed myself. The first one is that some people are just naturally confident speakers. The second is that fluent English has to be fast English. The third myth is that confident speakers never have to ask for clarification. The fourth is that confident speakers never have setbacks and they don't really make mistakes. And finally, the fifth myth we'll tackle is the idea that you either have confidence or you don't. We're going to break down each of these myths and replace them with empowering truths and strategies that you can start using today. Let's begin with that first big myth, the one I believed for so many years, the myth that some people are just born confident speakers. I held on to this belief for a very long time, and a big reason for that was my husband, Mark. Mark is a classic extrovert. He can walk into a room full of strangers and, within minutes, he's talking and laughing with everyone. He seems to feel totally comfortable speaking with anyone, at any time, about anything, and he always appears so confident. I remember one time we went to a friend's dinner party. There were about 10 people there, and I only knew the hosts. As we walked in, I could feel my social anxiety start to bubble up. My instinct was to find a quiet corner and hope no one would talk to me. But Mark, he was the opposite. He walked right into the center of the living room, introduced himself with a big smile, and within 5 minutes, he was telling a hilarious story about a travel mishap. The whole group was captivated, hanging on his every word and laughing out loud. I watched him from across the room, feeling a mixture of admiration and intense jealousy. It looked so effortless for him. It was like breathing. I used to think, why can't I be like that? He must have a special gene for confidence that I'm missing. Years later, I attended my first big professional networking event alone. It was in a massive hotel ballroom filled with hundreds of people. The noise was a constant roar. Everyone seemed to know each other, standing in tight circles, laughing and exchanging business cards. I felt like I had a giant spotlight on me, highlighting how alone and awkward I was. My mission was to meet at least 3 new people. It felt impossible. I spent the first 20 minutes just walking around the edge of the room, pretending to look at my phone. My heart was pounding. My perfectionist gremlin was having a field day. "You don't belong here," it whispered. "Everyone can see how nervous you are. If you try to talk to someone, you'll say something stupid." Finally, I saw one person standing alone by the snack table. I took a deep breath, walked over, and my mind went completely blank. I just stood there, awkwardly getting a glass of water, and then walked away. I left that event feeling like a complete failure. What I didn't realize then was that confidence in those situations isn't natural. It's a set of skills. How to approach a group, how to ask an opening question, how to listen actively, and how to exit a conversation gracefully. Mark seemed natural at it because he had been practicing those skills his whole life without even realizing it. So, the first step in dismantling this myth is a crucial mindset shift. The old mindset, the one that keeps us stuck, is confidence is a personality trait. Either you have it or you don't. This mindset is a trap because it makes us passive. We wait for confidence to magically appear. The new empowering mindset is confidence is a collection of skills that can be learned and practiced, just like playing the guitar or cooking. When you truly adopt this mindset, everything changes. Every conversation, every meeting, every phone call is no longer a performance where you are judged. Instead, it becomes a practice session. It's a low-pressure opportunity to work on a specific skill. Maybe today's practice is to use one pause. Maybe tomorrow's practice is to ask one clarifying question. When it's practice, not a performance, the stakes are lower, the anxiety decreases, and you can actually focus on learning. Like me, you might believe that certain people, especially extroverts, are naturally confident speakers simply because of their personality. We often describe extroverts as being outgoing, energetic, and very talkative. And because of that popular idea, another myth often follows right behind it, which is that introverts, the quieter ones, can't be confident when they're speaking with others. We tend to associate introverts with being shy, reserved, or withdrawn. But here's the thing. That's a very limited and often inaccurate picture. There are countless introverts who genuinely love being around people and feel very comfortable in many social situations. The key difference isn't about shyness or a love for people. It's about energy and how we process information. You can think of it this way. An extrovert's mind is like a busy city square with thoughts and ideas constantly being shared and debated out in the open. They get energy from that exchange. An introvert's mind is more like a private library where ideas are carefully researched, considered, and cataloged before being presented to the world. They need that quiet space to recharge their energy. Extroverts think by speaking their thoughts out loud. Introverts prefer to think and process their thoughts internally before they speak. And here is the powerful reality that I want you to hold on to. Introverts can absolutely be fully confident, fully fluent, and speak with exceptional clarity in any situation. I know this is true because I am one. I am a highly shy and highly introverted person, and I've had the privilege of working with so many amazing students from all over the world who would describe themselves in the same way, shy and introverted, in their native languages and in English. Yet, they develop the very same skills I want to help you develop, the skills of speaking with clarity, fluency, and unshakable confidence. So, let's talk about a practical approach to help you speak with confidence, no matter what the situation is, and no matter your personality type. The key is to use your natural skills to your advantage. Now, you might not consider yourself an introvert in your native language. That might not be your true personality. However, you might find yourself feeling more introverted when you have to speak English, simply because of the anxiety or the mental effort it takes. The advice I'm about to share applies in both contexts. Whether you're a natural introvert or you're just feeling like one when you speak English, the powerful natural ability we're going to leverage is this: thinking before you speak. This is the introvert's superpower. By intentionally giving yourself time, by taking advantage of the moments you have before and during a conversation, you're able to organize your thoughts. You can structure your ideas and be so much more prepared to share them with others, to share them with real confidence. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a strategy. It's a skill used by all powerful public speakers, including many famous leaders and performers who are well-known introverts. Let's get very specific with an example that many people find stressful: a job interview. Let's say you have an interview next week. A confident approach isn't about hoping you'll be brilliant in the moment. It's about preparing so thoroughly that your brilliance has a chance to show up. Here's a step-by-step preparation plan. Step 1. Become a detective. Spend at least an hour researching the company. Don't just look at their homepage. Find their mission statement or values page. What words do they use to describe themselves? Innovative, customer-focused, collaborative. Write these words down. They are clues to what the company cares about. Step 2. Prepare your stories. Interviewers love to ask behavioral questions, like, "Tell me about a time you faced a challenge." The best way to answer these is with the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. Brainstorm at least 5 stories from your past work experience that showcase your skills. For a challenge, the situation might be, "Our team was behind schedule on a major project. My task was to get us back on track." The action was, I organized a meeting, we identified the main bottleneck, and I proposed a new workflow. And the result was, as a result, we caught up and delivered the project on time, and the client was very happy. Don't write out full sentences. Just write down keywords for each of your 5 stories. Step 3. Practice out loud. This is the step most people skip, but it is the most important. Sit in a room by yourself and ask yourself the common interview questions out loud. Then answer them out loud using your STAR keyword notes. Record yourself on your phone. Then listen back. Don't listen for perfection. Don't criticize your grammar. Just listen for clarity. Was your story easy to follow? Did you sound energetic? Do this 3 or 4 times for each story. It will feel strange at first, but by the 3rd time, the story will feel comfortable and natural in your mouth. Step 4. Prepare your questions. At the end of the interview, they will always ask, "Do you have any questions for us?" A confident candidate always has thoughtful questions. Prepare at least 3 questions based on your research. For example, I read that one of your company values is collaboration. Can you tell me what that looks like on a day-to-day basis on your team? This shows you did your homework and are genuinely interested. By following these 4 steps, you walk into that interview not as someone hoping to get lucky, but as a prepared professional ready to have a conversation. You have used your time in advance to organize your thoughts. Now let's consider a specific challenging scenario. What do you do when you are in a group conversation, maybe at work or at a party, and everyone is talking over each other? It feels impossible to find a space to speak. This is a common anxiety. Here's a simple 3-step strategy. Step 1 is to listen actively. Don't focus on what you want to say. Instead, focus on finding the natural rhythm of the conversation. Listen for the tiny pauses as people breathe or transition between ideas. Step 2 is to use your body language. When you hear one of those small pauses and you want to speak, physically lean in slightly. This is a nonverbal cue that signals to the group that you have something to add. It often makes people pause just long enough for you to start. Step 3 is to use a clear opening phrase. Don't just start talking. Use a phrase that acts like a key to unlock the conversational door. You could say, "If I could just jump in here." Or, "That's a great point, David, and it makes me think about." By using someone's name, you get their attention and show you were listening. This 3-step process, listen, lean in, and launch with a phrase, turns a chaotic situation into a manageable one. But what about spontaneous conversations? What happens when you're in the middle of a discussion and you don't have time to prepare? You can still use this superpower. You can pause, just briefly, in order to take advantage of those little moments in time to organize your very next thought. Don't try to plan out the next 20 minutes of what you want to say. That's overwhelming and impossible. Just focus on planning the next sentence, and then the next one, and then the next one. This approach encourages you to embrace little pauses while you speak. These are wonderful moments that allow you to breathe, which calms your nerves. They are moments that allow you to organize that next idea. And they take so much pressure off of you. You don't have to have a perfect, continuous stream of words. Now, if you're worried that using a pause will make you seem hesitant or unconfident, you can use a simple phrase to buy yourself some time. These are like little bridges that give your mind a moment to catch up. For example, If someone asks for your opinion, you can say, "That's a very interesting point. Let me think about that for a second." If someone asks a complex question, you could respond with, "That's a big question. Let me just gather my thoughts." Using these phrases signals to the other person that you are engaged and thoughtful, not that you are lost or unconfident. Let's try a little visualization exercise right now. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable, or just find a soft spot to gaze at in the room. Imagine you are in a team meeting at work. Your boss is talking about a new project. Suddenly, she turns to you and says, "What are your initial thoughts on the new marketing proposal?" Feel that little jolt of surprise? That's normal. Now, before you panic, take one slow breath. In your mind, hear yourself say a simple phrase. "Thanks for asking. Let me just review my notes for a second." See? You've just created a calm space for yourself. Now just think of one simple question you could ask about the proposal. It doesn't have to be a brilliant, game-changing statement. Just a question. For example, could you clarify the main target audience for this proposal? That's it. You've participated, you've engaged, and you did it thoughtfully and confidently. At this point, you might be thinking two things. First, Jessica, we don't always have time to prepare for every conversation. And second, I'm not sure about these pauses. I'm afraid they're going to make me speak too slowly. You are right on the first point. We absolutely don't always have time to prepare. Life is full of unexpected conversations. We have more opportunities to prepare than we often realize. And here's the magic of it. When you practice speaking regularly, including those moments when you are simply practicing by yourself to prepare for something, it helps you become a much better spontaneous speaker as well. It's like a musician practicing their scales. They don't know what song they'll be asked to play, but because they've practiced the fundamentals, they can improvise beautifully. Now, let's talk about that second fear. The fear that using pauses will make you sound slow. This brings us directly to our second myth, the one that haunts so many English learners. The myth that fluent speakers are always fast speakers. I hear this all the time. I struggle to keep up with fast English, but I need to speak fast to be fluent, right? Without a doubt. This is one of the most common and most damaging misconceptions. You can think of it like this. Fast speaking is like fast food. It's quick, it's cheap, and it might fill you up for a moment, but it's not nourishing and often leaves you feeling unsatisfied. Speaking with clear intention and thoughtful pauses is like a well-cooked, nutritious meal. It takes a bit more time to prepare and enjoy, but it's satisfying, memorable, and much healthier for both the speaker and the listener. The mindset shift here is critical. The old mindset is, if I speak slowly, people will think I'm unintelligent or bad at English. This is a fear-based perspective. The new mindset is, speaking deliberately makes me sound thoughtful, clear, and in control. Clarity is more impressive than speed. When you adopt this new mindset, you start to see your speech differently. You are not just trying to get words out, you are trying to deliver a message effectively. Think about some of the most respected and powerful speakers you have heard. Often they speak quite deliberately. Former U.S. President Barack Obama is famous for his use of the thoughtful pause. He uses it to add weight to his words and to give the audience time to reflect. He is not perceived as a poor speaker. He is perceived as a masterful one. You can give yourself permission to do the same. I had to learn this lesson the hard way. Early in my career, I had a job interview for a position I really wanted. I was so nervous and so determined to sound smart and fluent. I thought that meant I had to speak quickly. So when the interviewer asked me questions, I rushed through my answers. I spoke so fast, trying to cram in as much information as possible, that my words started to blend together. I remember looking at the interviewer's face and seeing a polite but slightly confused expression. At the end of the interview, he said, "You're clearly very passionate, but I have to admit, I had a little trouble following some of that." My heart sank. I had been so focused on speed that I had completely failed at the most important part of communication, being understood. Let me try to demonstrate this again. If a Trito speak really fast and getalaf mi ord saudatonse, without taking breathe it be, comes very difficult. For you understanda and formado, think clearly and is start to make 'em istakes and los me place. Oof, that's really hard for me to do. Did that sound clear to you? Did it sound confident and fluent? It definitely sounded fast. But was it good communication? No, of course not. The reality is this. True fluency is about smooth, natural, and clear communication, with you in control. When I was speaking super fast just a moment ago, I did not feel like I was in control at all. My brain felt chaotic. It was like a whirlwind of words. I knew that I was probably making mistakes while I was speaking, but I was moving too fast to catch them, and I certainly couldn't prevent them because I wasn't giving myself any time to organize my thoughts or be careful about what I wanted to say. Let me say that definition of fluency again because it's so important. Fluency is about smooth, natural, clear communication, with you in control. So, what is some practical advice you can follow to make progress in this area and break free from the need for speed? It's simple. Aim for clarity over speed, always. Your goal as a communicator is to be understood, not to win a race. When you speak quickly, as I demonstrated, it's not the same as speaking clearly. To improve your clarity and your overall fluency, you should aim to use those little pauses we talked about while you're speaking. If you listen to me carefully right now, you'll notice that I use them quite a bit. I use a short pause in between my sentences. If I have a very long sentence, I might use a tiny pause in between groups of words or a single thought to break it up. This is a technique called speaking in thought groups. A thought group is a small chunk of speech that represents one idea. For example, in the sentence, "Because of the rain, we decided to postpone the picnic until next Saturday." There are 3 thought groups. Speak in this way makes it much easier for the listener to follow along. I'll also use a slightly longer pause before and after words that I really want to highlight to give them emphasis. Every single time I make one of those pauses, it's doing several things for me and for you, the listener. For me, it's giving me time to breathe. This is so important for keeping my voice steady and my mind calm. It helps to maintain a sense of calm, so I can think more clearly. Second, it allows me to think briefly about the very next thing that I want to say, whether it's choosing the right word, using the right grammar structure, or focusing on the right pronunciation. This is true for me when I speak English, and it's essential when I speak my second language. Here's an added benefit of slowing down that most people don't consider. It dramatically improves your listening skills. When you are speaking very fast, your brain is in a constant state of panic, always thinking, what am I going to say next? What am I going to say next? You are so focused on your own output that you don't have the mental space to truly listen to the other person. You're just waiting for your turn to talk. But when you slow down, when you embrace the pause, you give your brain a break. In those brief moments of silence, you are better able to process what the other person has just said. You can listen more deeply. This leads to better understanding, more thoughtful responses, and a much more connected conversation. So slowing down doesn't just make you a better speaker. It makes you a better listener and a better conversational partner. Now, a common fear that comes with slowing down and pausing is the fear of being interrupted. You might be thinking, but Jessica, if I pause, someone else will jump in and start talking. This is a valid concern, especially in fast-paced conversations or in certain cultures. Here's how you can manage that. First, remember that a short pause of 1 or 2 seconds is usually not long enough for someone to interrupt. It just feels long to you. Second, you can use nonverbal signals. If you are on a video call or in person, you can hold up a finger slightly as if to say, I have one more point to make. This simple gesture often holds your space in the conversation. Third, you can use a verbal bridge. You can signal that you are not finished by saying something like, and my second point is, or, and that leads me to this. These phrases tell the listener that more is coming, and if someone does interrupt, you can wait for them to finish and then calmly say, as I was saying before, or if I could just finish my thought. This is a confident and assertive way to regain your turn. Now, if you're still not sure about this idea, I have a little challenge for you. Find a short paragraph of text. It could be from a news article on your phone or a page from a book you're reading. First, I want you to read it out loud at your normal, perhaps slightly fast pace. If you can, record yourself on your phone. Don't worry about how it sounds. Now, I want you to read the same paragraph again. This time, I want you to break it into thought groups. Read a few words that go together, then take a tiny, almost unnoticeable pause for a quick breath. Then read the next few words. At every period, I want you to take a longer pause, a full 1-second breath. As you do this, I also want you to focus on letting your voice go down slightly in pitch at the end of each sentence, like a gentle slope downhill. Now listen to the 2 recordings. What's the difference? The second one, even if it's technically slower, probably sounds much clearer, more controlled and more confident. That's the power of the pause. This brings us to our third myth, and it's one that is deeply connected to our fear of looking weak or incompetent. Myth number 3 is that confident speakers never seek clarification. The old mindset here is, asking for clarification makes me look stupid or like I wasn't paying attention. The new, powerful mindset is, asking for clarification makes me look smart, engaged, and detail-oriented. It prevents costly mistakes and shows respect for the speaker's message. This shift is about moving from a place of insecurity to a place of professional responsibility. Your responsibility in a conversation is to understand. Asking questions is the tool you use to fulfill that responsibility. I learned this lesson in a very stressful way. I was in a big project kickoff meeting with a new client. The project manager was going over the deadlines and he said something like, "And we'll need the initial wireframes EOD Friday." In my head, I panicked. EOD, what did that mean? End of day? End of document? I was too afraid to ask. I didn't want this new client to think I was inexperienced, so I just nodded my head and wrote down Friday deadline. It turns out EOD in that company culture meant 12 p.m., noon. I delivered the wireframes at 5 p.m. on Friday, and the client was not happy. My mistake created a delay and started our relationship on the wrong foot, all because I was too afraid to ask one simple question. A few years later, in a different job, I was in a similar situation. My team was working on a huge software launch, and the director of engineering said, "The key dependency for this launch is ensuring the API is fully deprecated." I understood most of the words, but I wasn't 100% sure what fully deprecated meant in this specific context. The memory of my EOD mistake flashed in my mind. My heart started to beat a little faster, but this time I decided to be brave. I waited for him to finish his sentence, and then I said, "Thanks for that update. Could you quickly clarify what fully deprecated means for the non-engineers in the room? I want to make sure my team understands the impact." The director smiled and said, "Great question." He then explained it in simple terms. Not only did I understand, but 2 other people in the room later told me they were glad I had asked because they were also confused. In that moment, asking for clarification didn't make me look weak. It made me look like a leader who cared about accuracy and teamwork. Confident speakers do not hesitate to ask for clarification. In fact, doing so shows that they are fully engaged in the conversation. It shows that they are committed to truly understanding the other person's message. It's a sign of respect. It tells the other person, "What you are saying is important to me, and I want to make sure I get it right." In American professional and social culture, this is seen as a sign of active listening, which is a highly valued skill. Think of a good doctor. They don't just assume they know what's wrong. They ask lots of clarifying questions to get the most accurate information. True confidence isn't about knowing everything. It's about having the courage to admit when you don't and being committed to finding out. I also want to acknowledge that in some cultures, questioning a senior person can be seen as disrespectful. If you come from such a background, it can feel very unnatural to do this. The key is to phrase your question politely and frame it as a desire for complete understanding, not as a challenge to their authority. But let's consider a difficult scenario. What do you do when you've asked someone to repeat themselves, maybe even twice, and you still don't understand? This can be a very awkward and embarrassing moment. The temptation is to just nod and pretend you understand. Please do not do this. Here is a better strategy. Step 1 is to be honest and polite, while taking responsibility. You can say something like, "I'm so sorry, I'm still having a little trouble understanding that last part. My apologies. My listening is not at its best today." By taking the blame, you make the other person feel comfortable, not defensive. Step 2 is to change the method of communication. If you're on a video call, you could ask, "Would you mind typing that word or phrase into the chat for me?" Sometimes seeing it helps. If you're in person, you could ask, "Could you maybe explain it in a different way, perhaps with an example?" This shifts from repetition to re-explanation, which is often more effective. This strategy turns a moment of potential embarrassment into a collaborative problem-solving effort. So, Ween, how can you start putting this into practice? The best way is to practice asking for clarification in low-pressure situations. For the next week, I challenge you to ask for clarification at least once a day. It can be something very small and simple. At a coffee shop, you could ask, "Sorry, did you say oat milk or almond milk?" In a conversation with a friend, you could say, "Just to be clear, are we meeting at 7 or 7:30? The goal is just to get comfortable with the act of asking, to build the muscle of seeking clarity so it feels natural in more important situations. Let me share some more advanced phrases and techniques for clarification. For a formal situation where someone uses an idiom or jargon you don't know, you could say, "That's a new expression for me. When you say we need to think outside the box, what does that look like in practice for this project?" This shows curiosity and a desire for precision. Another incredibly powerful technique is to repeat back what you think you heard. This is called paraphrasing or parroting back. For example, after your boss gives you instructions, you could say, "Okay, let me just repeat that back to you to make sure I have it right. First, I need to contact the sales team. Second, I need to get the Q3 report from them. And third, I need to send it to you by 5 p.m. Is that correct?" This technique is amazing. It not only ensures you understood correctly, but it also makes the other person feel truly heard and respected. Finally, at the end of a long meeting, you can be the person who brings clarity to the whole group by saying, "This was a great discussion." Just to summarize, it sounds like our main action items are, "This is a true leadership skill." And now we arrive at myth number 4, a myth that can be particularly crushing for anyone who considers themselves a perfectionist. This is the myth that confident speakers don't have setbacks. They don't make mistakes. They don't fumble over their words. They never forget what they were trying to say. The mindset shift for this one is perhaps the most profound. The old mindset is, mistakes are failures and proof that I'm not good enough. This mindset leads to shame and avoidance. We become afraid to speak because we are afraid of making mistakes. The new mindset is, mistakes are data. They are proof that I am trying, and they are essential for learning and growth. When a scientist does an experiment and it doesn't work, they don't see it as a failure. They see it as valuable data that tells them what not to do next time. You can treat your English mistakes the same way. Every mistake is a little piece of data that gives you information about what you need to practice next. This shifts the emotion from shame to curiosity. When we are in spontaneous real-life conversations, our brain doesn't always have a perfect connection to our mouth. We can't always say exactly what we wanted to say in the precise moment we wanted to say it. This happens because of something called cognitive load. When you're speaking, especially in a non-native language, your brain is doing many things at once. Choosing words, checking grammar, managing pronunciation, listening to the other person, and reading their body language. It's a lot of work. Sometimes the system gets overloaded and a word gets dropped. It's like trying to carry too many groceries at once. Sometimes a bag falls. This is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that your brain is working hard. We forget things, especially common words that we use every day. We trip over our words or get them mixed up. Sometimes, our mind just goes completely blank, and we lose our train of thought right in the middle of a sentence. These things happen. They happen to everyone. From students learning English to news anchors on live television to the CEOs of major companies. They happen even to the most skilled and experienced communicators. I once saw a very famous CEO give a keynote speech to thousands of people. In the middle of his presentation, he was trying to make a point about a new product, and he completely forgot the name of the product. He stood there in silence for a few seconds, and then he just smiled and said, "Wow, I am so excited about this new product that I've completely forgotten what we decided to call it." The whole audience laughed with him. He took a sip of water. His assistant whispered the name to him from the side of the stage, and he continued. That moment of imperfection actually made him seem more human, more relatable, and even more confident, because he handled it with grace and humor. Now, it is true that when you practice consistently, you can reduce how often these things happen. You can maintain better control when you're speaking, and you can learn how to regain control in those moments when you feel like you've totally lost what you wanted to say. In fact, I had to do this just recently. I host a community for my students, and I was recording a video to share an update on how to use a progress journal. A journal, as in a notebook where you write things down. And as I was speaking, I completely forgot the word journal. Journal. This is such an easy, simple word, but my mind went completely blank. I just couldn't remember it. For a brief moment, I felt a wave of panic. I could feel the room getting warmer. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I could see the faces of my students on the screen looking at me, waiting. My inner gremlin started screaming, "You're a fraud!" An English teacher who can't remember the word journal. But then, I used the skills that I know I have to regain control. I used a simple framework that I call the 3 R's of recovery: recognize, reset, and resume. First, I had to recognize the moment without judgment. I silently said to myself, "Okay, the word is gone. That's okay." I didn't panic or criticize myself. Second, I had to reset my nervous system. I took a slow, deep breath. This simple act of breathing told my brain, "You are safe. There is no emergency." This stopped the panic from escalating. I also used a rephrasing technique. Instead of focusing on the lost word, I started to describe the concept in a different way. I said, this document, this special notebook where you track your progress every week. And third, I was able to resume. In the process of describing it, the word came back to me. Journal, I said with a little laugh. That's the word I was looking for. The progress journal. Then I just moved on. And you know what? No one cared. They just smiled. The moment passed. The most important part of this process is learning to manage your inner critic, that perfectionist gremlin. The gremlin gets its power from your belief in it. You can take away its power by talking back to it. This is a simple but powerful technique from cognitive psychology. When you make a mistake and the gremlin says, "You sounded so stupid," I want you to practice responding to it in your mind. You can say, "That was a mistake, and I am learning from it. It was brave of me to even try." When the gremlin says, "Everyone is judging you," you can respond, "I don't know that for a fact. Most people are kind and are focused on the message, not on my small mistake." By actively responding to these negative thoughts, you begin to rewire your brain. You create new thought patterns based on self-compassion and a growth mindset. So let's practice this. Think about a time you made a mistake while speaking English. Maybe you used the wrong word or forgot what you were saying. How did you react? Did your inner gremlin start shouting at you? Now I want you to replay that memory, but this time, apply the 3 R's. Recognize the mistake without judgment. Okay, I used the wrong preposition. Reset by taking a calm breath, and then think about how you could have resumed. Maybe you could have just corrected yourself calmly. Sorry, I meant on Tuesday. Or maybe you could have just moved on, knowing that the other person probably still understood you. The key is to practice self-compassion after a mistake, not self-criticism. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How was I brave for even trying? And that brings us to our final and perhaps most fundamental myth of all. Myth number 5, the idea that you either have confidence or you don't. The old mindset is, I have to wait until I feel confident before I can take action. Sick. This is the ultimate trap because it leads to endless waiting. Confidence doesn't just show up one day. The new life-changing mindset is, action comes first. Confidence is the result of taking small, consistent actions. Courage is when you take action even when you don't feel confident. And confidence is the feeling you earn after you've been courageous. Every single confident speaker you have ever admired started at the beginning. They learned the basics of clear communication. They practiced consistently. They observed their own skills. They learned how to overcome their mistakes in the moment. And they continued to practice and practice and practice to sharpen and refine their communication skills. When you think about confidence, I want you to stop thinking of it as a personality trait you are born with. Instead, I want you to think of it like a muscle. You wouldn't go to the gym one time, lift a very small weight, look in the mirror and say, well, I guess I'm just not a person with strong muscles. Of course not. You understand that building muscle takes time, consistency, and progressively challenging yourself. Confidence is the exact same. Every small conversation is one repetition, one rep at the gym. Every time you use a new phrase, you're doing another set. It is built through small, consistent efforts over time. You can also think of it like planting a tree. You start with one small seed. That's your first small action. You have to water it consistently with practice. For a long time, it might seem like nothing is happening, but underground, roots are growing. And then one day, a small sprout appears. And if you keep nurturing it, over years, it will grow into a strong, resilient tree that can withstand any storm. This is what I call the confidence spiral, or the confidence loop. It's an upward spiral that you can start today. It begins with learning. You learn something new, like a strategy from this lesson. That knowledge informs your action. You decide to take a small, low-risk action. That action leads to an experience. That experience, even if it's a tiny success, begins to shift your self-beliefs. You start to think, hey, I did it. It wasn't so bad. This small change in belief builds a tiny bit of real confidence. And that little bit of confidence motivates you to take another, slightly bigger action. And the cycle continues, spiraling upwards. Let me tell you about a student of mine. Let's call her Maria. When Maria started, her goal was to speak up in her weekly team meetings. This felt like climbing Mount Everest. So we broke it down using the confidence spiral. First, she learned a few simple phrases for giving an opinion, like, in my view, or, I see your point and I'd like to add that. Then she took a very small action. She used one of the phrases in a text message to a friend. Her friend responded positively. This was her first tiny success experience. It made her believe, okay, that wasn't so scary. That tiny bit of confidence motivated her to take the next step. The next day, she used the phrase in a one-on-one conversation with a friendly coworker she trusted. It went well. This was a bigger success. She reflected, I did it, and my coworker understood me perfectly. She told me that before she spoke, her gremlin was whispering, he's going to think your idea is stupid. But after she spoke, and he responded positively, she was able to say back to the gremlin, see? You were wrong. This is a crucial part of the process, proving your own negative thoughts wrong with evidence. After a few more days of practicing in these safe one-on-one conversations, her confidence muscle was a little bit stronger. She felt ready for a bigger challenge. The next week, in her team meeting, her manager asked for ideas. Maria's heart was pounding, but she took a breath and she said, in my view, we could try. She said one simple sentence. It wasn't a long speech, but she did it. The team listened, and someone even agreed with her. The feeling of relief and pride she felt was immense. That success gave her the confidence to do it again the next week and the next. She got on the upward spiral. Confidence is nurtured, and it is developed over time through practice and through exposure to different situations and conversations. A crucial part of this journey is learning to track your progress. Our brains have a negativity bias, meaning we tend to remember our mistakes more than our successes. So you can't rely on just feeling more confident. You need to gather evidence. I highly recommend keeping a confidence journal. It's very simple. Every evening, take 2 minutes and write down the answers to 3 questions. 1. What is one small act of communication bravery I took today? It could be as small as asking a cashier a question. 2. How did it feel? Be honest. Maybe it felt scary, but you survived. 3. What did I learn? Maybe you learned that the cashier was friendly or that you were stronger than you thought. After a month of doing this, you can look back and you will have concrete written proof of your progress. This evidence is the most powerful weapon against the perfectionist gremlin. So, my practical advice here is to take action. So let me give you 8 concrete recommendations for how you can start to take action and get that essential speaking practice, starting right now. First, find a structured program or training to guide you. Having a step-by-step plan can help you build a meaningful habit and make progress. The challenge here is to commit to it for at least 30 days to build a real habit. Second, join an English-speaking community. This could be an online speaking club or an in-person English-speaking meetup group in your city. The key is to find other people with the same goal. A pro tip: don't just attend. Before each meeting, set a small, specific goal for yourself. For example, tonight my goal is to speak up at least 2 times. Or, my goal is to ask one person a follow-up question. Third, join a club or a volunteer organization that is based on an interest you have. If you love reading, join a book club. If you love animals, volunteer at a local animal shelter. This connects your practice to something you are passionate about, which is a powerful motivator. Fourth, find a language coach or a teacher that you trust and feel comfortable with, and take a speaking class with them, whether it's online or in person. Fifth, Ask a coworker or a neighbor to meet with you regularly for speaking practice. This is something I did when I was living abroad in France. I found someone I felt comfortable with, and we agreed to meet once a week for coffee. We spent 30 minutes practicing French for me, and 30 minutes practicing English for her. It was a simple, effective, and supportive arrangement. Sixth, listen to a podcast or a TED Talk in English. While you listen, write down a few new words or phrases that you'd love to add to your own vocabulary when you're finished. Practice summarizing what you heard out loud. For a US-based audience, I recommend podcasts like This American Life for storytelling, The Daily from the New York Times for news, or Stuff You Should Know for interesting general knowledge. Seventh, talk to yourself out loud in English when no one is listening. This is my personal favorite. A great way to do this is to use the voice memo app on your phone. At the end of the day, record a 1-minute audio diary. Just talk about your day in English. What did you do? What was interesting? What was challenging? The challenge. Commit to doing this every day for 30 days. Don't worry about making it perfect. Then, at the end of the 30 days, listen back to your first entry and your last entry. You will be amazed to hear your own progress. You can also pretend you are a tour guide in your own home. And here, on the right, we have the magnificent living room sofa, famous for its ability to host long movie marathons. Or narrate what you're doing as you cook dinner, as if you have your own cooking show. First, we will chop the onions. Be careful not to cry. It's a zero-pressure way to get your mouth moving and your brain thinking in English. And idea number 8. For those who want a very structured environment for public speaking, consider joining a speaking-focused organization like Toastmasters International. They have clubs all over the world. The most important thing, out of all of these ideas, is to do what you can to take action. Start small. You don't have to do everything at once. Pick one thing. Expand your comfort zone slowly. And try to work with others who will support you and encourage you. When you do that, when you commit to taking small, consistent actions, you will enjoy improved abilities, you will feel renewed motivation, you will build real, lasting confidence, and you will achieve better fluency. In our lesson today, we've dismantled 5 powerful myths that hold English learners back. We've replaced them with the truth that confidence is a skill, not a gift, that clarity is more important than speed, that asking questions is a sign of strength, that everyone makes mistakes, and that you can absolutely build the confidence you desire through consistent action. So now I have a question for you. What is the one action step you are committed to taking? Just one thing. What is one small step you can take this week to get on that upward spiral of confidence? Will you talk to yourself in English while you cook dinner? Will you ask for clarification at the grocery store? Will you write down and practice one sentence to say at your next meeting? I would love for you to share it with me down below in the comments. When you write it down and share it, you're not just making a promise to yourself. You're inspiring someone else who might be reading and feeling stuck. Your courage can be contagious. With that, if you found this lesson helpful, if it made you feel a little more hopeful about your English journey, I would love to know. You can tell me in a few ways. You can give this video a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the English in Advance channel so you never miss one of our weekly lessons, and be sure to ring that notification bell. And of course, You can drop a comment down below to share your action step. Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure to share this time with you. Remember that this is a journey, not a destination. Be patient and kind with yourself and celebrate every small step forward. That small seed of action you plant today will, with consistent practice, grow into a strong, magnificent tree of confidence. I look forward to seeing you again next time.